Today I'm going to show you how to make one of these really cute little paper baskets. This is a large size that's made with a 9-inch square piece of paper. Here is a medium basket, and this is made with a 6 3/4 inch square piece of paper. Or you can even make a micro basket using a 4.5 inch square piece of paper. They're all constructed exactly the same way, and just depending on what size of paper that you start with, you end up with a different size basket. You can embellish these any way you like. I've chosen some butterfly die cuts for the one side, or on the back side you can put like a little bow. You can also put a little tag or perhaps even a flower. So totally versatile and very, very easy to make. I'm going to walk you through it, so let's get started. I'm going to use a very basic, simple piece of paper to show you how to put together this basket so that you can more easily see all the scoring. It's pretty difficult on the patterned paper to see where to score and where to cut. So today I'm going to show you how to make the medium-sized basket. But know that every single basket goes together the exact same way, just the measurements change. So if you visit my website at theycallmemartha.com, you will see the printed directions there with all the different dimensions for the small, medium, and large. And also a printout that will show you where to score, which might be helpful for you as you go to make this basket on your own. So again, it's on my website. I'll go ahead and link it in the description of the video as well. So we're going to start out with a 6 3/4 inch by 6 3/4 inch square piece of paper. And we're going to make a few quick scores. So the first score is going to be at 2 1/4. And the second score is going to be at 4 1/2. And what we've done here is we've divided the paper into equal thirds. So again, 2 1/4, 4 1/2. We're going to turn the paper once and do the exact same thing. So 2 1/4 by 4 1/2. All right. And if I just flash over here to my printed example, we've just made these 4 score marks, right? So 2 1/4, 4 1/2, we turned the paper, and then 2 1/4, 4 1/2. Now what we're going to do is make some score marks in the 4 corners of the paper. And you'll notice that the score marks do not go all the way through. They're just contained within each of these corners. So when you go ahead and score, in each section you want to stop at that first horizontal score mark. So for this example, with the 6 3/4 inch paper, we're going to score each of these corner boxes twice. And we're going to essentially section these out into thirds. So the first box, which is our top left, we're going to score at 3/4 of an inch. And again, we're stopping right at that first score mark, right? And then 1 1/2. And so now, let me just hold that up so you can see it, hopefully. Now we've divided this square into equal thirds. All right, we're going to do the same thing here, here, and here. So in the second block, we're going to score at 5 1/4, and then 6. So again, equal thirds here. Now we're going to turn the paper upside down, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So the first score is at 3/4 of an inch, stopping at that first horizontal score mark, and 1 1/2, and then 5 1/4, and 6. Okay. Now we're going to do some folding and burnishing, and I like to use a Teflon bone folder like this one. They are a little bit more expensive than, like the basic bone folders, but I like these because they don't leave a mark on your paper when you go to score. Sometimes the plastic bone folders will leave like a sheen on the paper. So again, what we're going to do now is fold on those first 4 score lines that we made. And so let me just do that here. And I'm going to use my bone folder to really burnish down each of these folds. And then we're going to turn it and do the other side. And then the last side. And so now we have a really crisp edge on each one of these. Before we go much further, we're going to make one more measurement. And I'm just going to pull out my ruler here. And this middle section here and this middle section become the front of the basket. So let me show you what that looks like. So in this example, it becomes this middle portion of the basket. So we need to find the very center of it so that we know where to cut. So this square is 2 1/4 inches wide. So half of that is 1 1/8. So I'm just going to make a little pencil mark and then turn my paper and do the same thing here, 1 1/8. And then all we need to do is draw a straight line from the intersection of each corner down to this line and make that triangle. And I just use a kind of a light hand here because we don't want these pencil lines to show. And if they do, we can certainly come back in with an eraser, but the lighter you draw them, the easier it is to erase them, of course. So I'm just going to score here on this side, and then this side again. Okay, so now we're ready to do some cutting. And when we cut, we're going to cut each one of these score lines only up to, again, that first score where the horizontal score where we stopped here. So we're going to cut each one of these out and cut out our triangles. Now that we have our box scored and cut, all we need to do is assemble it. I like to use wet glue, mostly because it dries so fast. I do not recommend using hot glue in this step because it will leave too much bulk. So get yourself some wet glue. It is, again, the easiest and nicest finish for making this paper basket. What we're going to do now is we're going to end up joining each one of these flaps to one another from left and right, and we start to make that curve of that basket like that. The first two, so we're going to start with the two inside pieces, the left and the right. We're going to glue them together so that they come at a right angle. So it doesn't matter whether you do left over right, but we just need to make sure that they line up. And let me see if I can get nice and close so you can actually see what that looks like. So I'm going to put some glue on that edge and just hold them there for a second where the left and the right side completely align. And what I like to do is use a little paper clip or peg to hold that in place while we continue to work. So we can flip over the other side of the basket and do the same thing. So again, we're putting a little bit of glue on that corner, and then making sure that they're aligned, and clip them. And we're going to do the next row. So we're going to start with the second one on the left and the second one on the right, and we're going to join them in the same way, but they're not going to come at that 45-degree angle. They're actually just going to line up from this tip to this tip. So let me show you what that looks like. So again, a little bit of glue on the tab, and then you pull them together, and I just make sure that the tips come together there. Hopefully you can see that. And put a little clip. We're going to turn this over and do the same thing on this side. So a little bit of glue. And we're going to join these two sections together where they form a point. And clip it. Just like that. And if you're wondering where I get these little clips, I get them at the Dollar Tree. And I like them because they have this little plastic tip on them, so it doesn't leave a mark on your paper after you pull it off. So they work out really nice. Okay, I'm going to go back over to my first side, remove that second clip, and now I'm going to do the same thing in the back, but the one in the back lines up completely horizontal. So we want to make sure that these are not glued at an angle, but rather glued straight on, and they form the side of the basket. So they form this section of the basket. So very similar to the other two, we're going to put a little bit of glue here, but when we glue them together, we're going to make sure that they're nice and straight and create the edge of that basket. And clip this one too. Okay, I'm going to go over here and do the exact same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue, and I'm going to bring my right side in and line them up. Make sure that they're completely straight. Make sure you're not pinching your basket either. If you bring it in too far, it's going to pinch your basket and not be straight. So just make sure they fit together naturally, where the basket would naturally want to fold on either side. Okay, and a little clip. And so let me go back to this side. And you'll see now I have those three layers. So here's the first one we put together at a 45-degree angle, the second one where we put the points together, and then the third one where we made it horizontally straight. And so now we want to glue these sections together, okay? So you're going to put just a little bit of glue in between each layer and glue them down. And we'll come back and trim this up after that glues. So I'm just going to put a pin there again to hold it. Going to go back to the other side and do the same thing. And you can see this is starting to look like a basket. All we're left with is the front. And so when I go back over to the first side we were working on, now I can come back in and trim off this point. And I usually just take a very small pair of scissors, and if I flip the basket over, it's really easy to see where I need to cut. So right there along that horizontal line, and it's got a few layers in it, right? Because we've glued all those corners together. So be careful when you trim that off. It will be thick, and you just need to snip it off. And then one little finishing detail, which is totally optional, but something I do, is this very first little corner right here. You can snip off if you want to. And I don't do it before I glue it down because I want to make sure that these edges line up. But if you want, you can just pry up that little corner and snip this off. And the only reason why I do that is so when I close up the basket, that little corner doesn't peek out right there. It's totally optional. And honestly, when you go to embellish the front of your basket, you're probably not even going to see it. So you don't have to do that step. Again, I like to do it just because I really enjoy kind of those finishing details. So all I need to do now is put a little bit of glue here and push the point against those layers, and you can wipe off any excess glue that you have. It will also dry clear if you're using art glitter glue, and put a pin there. And so that's going to dry. We'll come back and we'll do the same thing and trim that little point off. So I'm just going to repeat that step here on the other side. So again, I've kind of come in and I've trimmed off just this little edge right here, just like that. And then I've turned my basket over to kind of see where I should trim along this edge. And then now I just need a little bit of glue right here. And I fold up my front triangle and put a clip. All right. So now if I come back to this side, it should be just about dry. And if I flip it over again, I can just cut off that little point that's there, just to create a very finished edge. We'll do the same over here. And the body of the basket is really complete at this point. So what I like to do is embellish it at this point where it's still relatively flat. And so in this case, I'm just looking for a washi tape or something to put on that edge, which would be fun. And here's a really pretty washi tape that has some of that same lilac color. And I'm just gonna pop it around the edge. And one tip I have for you is if you want to use washi tape to decorate the edge, just like you see here in my example, I like to start on the side so that any seam that's created is not visible from the front of the basket. So I'm just going to go ahead and start that on the side and work it around. And then when you get to the section where there's all those layers, I like to just push in the washi tape so that you can get through all those little folded layers of basket and press it in so that it adheres really nice. And then continue around. And here I am on the back side of the basket. I'm going to do that same thing where I'm really pressing that tape in. And then I have my finished edge here, and I can trim that off. And I do like to put just a very small amount of glue where I connect those joints, just so that it holds up a little better. And in fact, I don't even need all of that excess. Just trim some of that off. And now we have that embellishment all the way around the edge. To create the handle, I'm going to bring my scoreboard back in for a minute. And I just take a piece of coordinating paper. You can do contrasting paper, whatever you really like. But I make it an inch wide. If you're doing a larger basket, you might want to make it maybe 1.5 inches wide. It's totally up to you. But I score it in half. So in this case, it's 1 inch wide, so I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch. And this strip is just 12 inches long, mostly because the paper I cut it from was 12 inches long, because I'm not going to need that much for the handle. But when you make it long like this, it allows you the ability to have a little bit more length in your handle if you're not quite sure how long you want to make it, and then you can just trim it down. So once you score it, go ahead and fold it in half and give it a good burnish with your bone folder, like this. And I'm going to fold it the other way too, and burnish it down. And then I like to put a little bit of glue in here. Just going to trim off this edge just a little bit. It's a little, my trimmer is getting a little dull because it's starting to leave a little bit of a ragged edge there. So I just want to put a little bit of that same art glitter glue or wet glue down the center of the paper. And then I'm just going to fold it up on itself and give it a good press. And so now I've just created a handle that is thick enough to hold the weight of the basket. Even though the basket's light, you know, if you put a few things in it, you might want to have a handle that's a little bit more stable. And then what I do is I take my bone folder and I just shape the handle a little bit. So right now it's completely straight, but I want it to have a curve, like a normal basket handle. And so if you put your bone folder on the bottom and put your paper on, hold it with your thumb, and just pull the paper with your left hand here. Pull it through while putting pressure with your right thumb, and it just shapes the handle just ever so slightly. It kind of reminds me of doing curled ribbon on a gift-wrapped package, only you don't need to put a whole lot of force in it. Basically what we're doing is just breaking down the fibers of the paper just enough so that it will hold a new shape. So now we want to attach the handle to the basket, and you can attach it in the front like that, or you can attach it on the inside if you'd rather. I think this time I'm going to do it on the inside. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here and attach my handle. And you could also, if you wanted to, run this same washi tape around that handle. That would be really cute, or maybe something coordinating. In one of my examples, oh, this one here, I did the washi tape actually on the inside of the handle. Hopefully you can see that. Just along the inside edge, and it was just to give it just a little bit of color and character so that you could see the underside of that handle. In my large basket example, I just left it just the exact same paper that I made the basket out of. Totally up to you. So we've attached the first side, and now this is where I was saying, you know, it's nice to have that extra length because you can make a really, really long handle if you want. You can make it shorter, but if you cut it super short, you're really limited as far as how tall that little handle can be. So I'm just going to eyeball it, and I think it looks cute right about there. So I'm just going to hold it there while I give this a quick cut, and right about there. And then I'm going to repeat that same process with a little bit of glue on the inside. Again, you can attach this on the outside as well. Totally up to you. And I'm just going to put that in there. And I'm just making sure that the handle lines up with the point of that basket. Okay, and then put a little pin there to hold it while it dries. And your basket is complete. Unless you want to add any additional embellishments, you're really finished. So a couple of ideas: you could put a flower here. You could put, if you have like a little button, or you can make a bow with fabric or ribbon, or in this case I did a paper bow in a little flat back pearl. On this side I did a butterfly, which is just a cut file that I cut out on my Scan and Cut in some of this beautiful glittered paper by Teresa Collins. And that's it. So that's the basket. I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you have any questions, let me know. And again, if you're looking for the dimensions for each of the sizes, the small, medium, and large, check them out on my website. I'll go ahead and put that link in the description.